that he was working with in the that he was working with in the 90s, in the late 90s. He hired the guy to do some investigation, and because the guy had high clearance. Now, this guy actually corroborated the information concerning the Dulce base. And the reason why I'm bringing the Dulce base up is because the Dulce base, again, it's in New Mexico. It's supposedly or allegedly under the Archuleta Mesa in New Mexico, and it's a very extensive underground base. And supposedly they're doing, or allegedly they're doing, horrific genetic experimentation. They have been since the early 80s at least. And they've actually have leaked some things from the Dulce base, and somebody's come out and leaked years back, I think in the 90s, early 90s, that they were able to confirm 7 levels to this base. And the first 3 levels are just security, human staff housing, executive offices, and laboratories. But once you get to once you get to level 4, it starts to get very bizarre, and you have to have very high clearance to get down there, because level 4 allegedly is mind control. Level 5 is alien housing, the Greys, whether you believe that or not. Level 6, it was said to be genetic experimentation. They call it the zoo. Level 7 was cryogenics and cold storage vats, which was also referred to as Nightmare Hall for some very appropriate reasons. So this U.S.-Russian double agent that Steve was in contact with actually was in the Dulce base. And this was, he actually corroborated and verified that this base exists and that they are doing genetic experimentation. He was actually on the floor, level 6, on the zoo level, the level where they're doing human genetic experimentation. And Steve tells the story often, and that this hardened U.S.-Russian double agent spy, assassin, mafioso guy broke down like a baby and cried with Steve, telling him what he saw on the genetic level of the Dulce base and on the genetic experiments level referred to as the zoo. The horrific genetic experimentation that they're doing, crossbreeding humans with, or I should say genetically modifying humans by doing cross-species genetics with all kinds of different animals, and that they were creating these aberrations that were suffering and crying out for help. And it's a very
I can't even wrap my brain around that, Tim. I mean, as hard as I'm trying, and it's not that I don't believe it. I'm trying to envision that, and it's difficult to do, And folks, I mean, I guess that's by design, isn't it? It's difficult to
Absolutely.
really, to really think about that and to envision that.
That is by design, and the Russian's name, by the way, is William Armstrong, or AKA the Maverick. And Steve has talked about this extensively on the radio. He's mentioned it a handful of times, at least, that I've heard on the radio. And it's a very compelling story to me, because I've studied the underground base at Dulce, and all the stories that have come out about this underground base have corroborated one another. So here you have a guy who absolutely attested to the fact that it is true that on level 6 and on level 7 of this underground base, underneath the Archuleta Mesa, New Mexico, they're doing the most grotesque, horrific genetic experimentation on human beings. By the way, and I hate to ruin everybody's evening, I really do, but a lot of these people that are taken into this base are children, and a lot of these young people that go missing. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They're abducted, and I mean, you can imagine the monsters that are doing these experimentations. I mean, these subhuman monsters that are basically children of their father, the devil, doing these experimentations on children. And again, I hate to be that graphic, but people have to understand the reality. People have to come to terms with reality. This is happening, and I have little children myself, and then I look at my little boys, and I can't, just like you, Doug, I can't imagine. It's almost like there's there's a firewall in my brain that just doesn't allow that information to truly compute and sink in because it is so devastating, so horrific. But folks, that is the world in which we live. That is the depths of evil and wickedness that are, and that's sort of a pun. It is the depths of evil and wickedness, the wickedness that's happening in the depths. And that brings me to, and I'm going to bring Darren on in a minute here into the conversation, but that brings me to a verse that I came across concerning this. I think this is a very interesting verse. It's in Psalm 74, verse 20. And it says, "Have respect unto the covenant, for the dark places of the earth are full of the habitations of cruelty." I'm going to say that again. This is Psalms 74, verse 20. "Have respect unto the covenant, for the dark places of the earth are full of the habitations of cruelty." And I submit to you that that is literal, that psalm is speaking to a very literal situation. And so anyway, it's not my intention to gross people out or to shock people. But this is reality. This shows you the depths of the wickedness behind the occult. That when we say that these guys are evil, that's an understatement. There really isn't a word that describes. And of course, we all know that human trafficking happens, and we're all aware of what these men do to the children, the sex slaves that they have. And we're talking baby infants, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds.
I've seen it.
That's the level of depravity that we're dealing with.
Yeah, as an investigator, I've seen some pretty horrific things, and at the tail end, Joe did too. But I got to tell you, it never stopped amazing me to see the level of depravity another human can inflict on, or a human can inflict on another human. I just, especially children, babies, to rape an infant, for example, and I won't get into it, but folks, trust me, that stuff is real. Not that what Tim's saying is not, but just take it a step further, or just follow through to the logical conclusion. By the way, Tim, I got to ask you, the people that are doing this 6, 7 levels down, are there people walking in the sunlight, in the daylight, that know this exists? I mean, who can I go to and grab onto, grab by the throat?
Those people have to be programmed. A lot of those guys are going to be Illuminati Black Awakening type people who have programming and altered personalities, and so they will retreat. They'll switch off of that personality, of that personality, the alter in their mind. When they come out of the base, they'll switch to somebody else. It doesn't necessarily, they can live a normal life or whatever and go on about their business above ground, and then go in like anybody else, waking up at 6 a.m., go into work and do these kinds of things. And it's programming. It has to be. A normal, sane person couldn't do it. It has to be an extremely wicked, demonic person that is completely given over to the occult, and in many cases programming.
And this is, by the way, folks, this is Russ Dizdar territory, or Russ Dizdar territory conference in Chicago. The end of this month, we'll be attending, Joe and I.
Yep.
Tim, go ahead. I'll flip it back. Are you going to be there, Tim?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
But,
all right. Okay.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
This is the. I want to say one more thing here, and then I'm going to kick it over to Darren. There is in the 1990s, late 1980s. There was I don't know if he's still alive, but there was a Japanese researcher. His name. Let's see if I can say this name without botching. His name is Norio Hayakawa. Some people maybe have heard of him. He was a Japanese filmmaker, documentary maker. He was an investigative journalist and very popular. And he did some really good work. He was on Art Bell's show, Coast to Coast, a handful of times, and different shows, and wrote different books and interviews. And in a letter dated January 28, 1991, he made some comments concerning the Dulce facility, this underground base that we're referring to. And its possible connection with the mystery of iniquity, as in Bible prophecy. This is what he said. This is a quote from that from the comments in the letter. Now listen to this. It's very interesting. I've been to Dulce with the Nippon Television Network crew and interviewed many, many people over there, and came back with the firm conviction that something was happening around 10 to 15 years ago over there, including nightly sightings of strange lights and appearances of military jeeps and trucks. And I am convinced that the Four Corners area is a highly occult area. The only stretch of highway, namely Highway 666, runs through the Four Corners area from southeast Arizona to northwestern New Mexico and up and into southwest Colorado and southeast Utah. I have also heard that this Highway 666 came into existence around 1947 or 1948, fairly close to the time of 1947, the modern-day beginning of overt UFO appearance, i.e. the Kenneth Arnold incident, and coincidentally or not, the establishment of Israel in 1948. Now, you have to understand that this Highway 666, that was named 666 back in the late 1940s during the big UFO flaps and when everything was beginning with the UFOs. Not beginning, but it was really surfacing in the public view. That's when they named this Highway 666, that just so happens to pass through one of the areas in the United States where the most important underground bases are located, where the most UFO activity has been reported, where we're developing some of our most powerful weapons and vehicles. I mean, is it really coincidence that they named that Highway 666, where these genetic experiments are happening? Again, corroborated by the Russian double agent that Steve knew in the 90s. There's something very satanic, very Luciferian, very carefully planned out happening in that area of the United States, and it's happening under the ground. And with that, I want to bring on, kick it over to Darren. Darren's got some interesting things concerning some of the things that we're talking about. Go ahead, Darren.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay. Well, I have some brain fog and throat problems too, so we'll make a good team here. Collectively, maybe we can get out some cohesive thoughts. But to comment on what Tim's saying is that I have been researching and tracking a few things, and I'm just asking the Lord to give me discernment as to what's true and what isn't. Because as you read and research, you don't know what to believe, but the Lord has just sort of tasked me with tracking a few things that are going on, and a lot of it has to do with underground activities and underground entities and how this fits into what you guys are talking about. And what I'm tracking, I'm not saying that I believe it, but it's alleged, and a lot of things are pointing to it that it's true or mostly true, is that, again, it goes back to the Nazis and the Raiders of the Lost Ark pictorial of how Hitler was combing the globe for every religious and occultic artifact is very true. And he searched the globe over, and when he came to the Tibetan monks, found that they were in guard of some secrets and had been known of underground entities for a very long time. And through that, Hitler and his henchmen were able to make contact with some races of underground entities that are known throughout the world in legend only, as these little stories creep out. But he got to know them much more intimately, and that's where the name Vril comes from. It's not just a Vril society, but there's supposedly a race of tall, well, there's a short variety and a medium and a tall variety of something called the Vril. And they didn't have technology, from what I'm understanding. They are very much an instinctual race, and but they knew of where to find ancient high technology. So in exchange for who knows whatever they exchanged in a deal, this race of Vril gave Hitler and the Nazis high technology. And so that's what we started to see developing towards the end of the war in the flying wings. And so when Operation Paperclip happened, we all know, we've heard that ad nauseum, Operation Paperclip, all the scientists came over. And so it wasn't just rocket technology. It wasn't this. They also, I believe, turned a lot of people onto hidden underground races or entities. So when the drilling, I know a lot of people that research this might think that they're alien, and that when we were building our bases, somehow they took over these bases and we had to, well, we were in a cooperation and maybe they took, no, I think they were at the deepest levels underground, and there was no way to go down there without making deals with them. And I'm convinced, speaking of Phil Schneider, that when he describes when he was lowered down, and you guys will have to, anybody who doesn't know the Phil Schneider story, you'll have to go online and listen to him, but he describes drilling deeply underground and then going down there to find out what the trouble was because their equipment was getting smashed, and he came face to face with the tall grays, which are these very tall, 6, 7, 8 foot tall entities with long necks and dark eyes, and they smell horribly. And he actually was able to shoot one of them, and they blew off part of his hand and fried him and killed a lot of good men that day. But I'm convinced that the entity that he ran into was something known as the Vril Type 3. It's a tall gray, and they are a subterranean species, and they are not at all alien in any way. They're only alien to us. That's I'm
right.
seeing. Now, would I be shocked to find out that they do have, interstellar travel or something like that? I wouldn't be shocked. But go ahead, Tim. What were you going to say?
No, this is Joe, Darren. Oh. And I just wanted to say in one of his speeches, he said that the alien agenda and demons were one and the same. And I believe that was after the experience you were talking about.
When you say the alien, you're saying the Greys and the Fallen, or the demons. What are you saying are the same? The Greys.
Yeah, he said the alien. I forget exactly how it was quoted or how he worded it, but the alien deception and demons, aliens and demons were the same thing, and there was a deception.
Yes, it was demonic. Yep. Yeah, he absolutely attested to that.
But I will say that I think that they led Phil Schneider or others to believe that with their high technology, that they might have been interplanetary or intergalactic, and I don't think they are at all. I think that they have access to high technology, to vehicles that can zip in and out dimensionally, and possibly there's many entities that do, but I don't believe they give the illusion. If I was Phil Schneider too, I think I would believe in looking at them. They're definitely aliens. Who would believe that there's underground races that we don't know about? It seems completely preposterous. So I see why he would believe that they are alien. But no, you guys were also referring. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me extrapolate on the Nazi connection here, because this does directly have to do with the theme super soldiers, and I'll tell you why. The Vril was a very big. It was this idea of these entities that Darren's referring to. They were in contact with, according to the Vril Society, the Nazis and the Thule Society. They were in contact with these entities. They believed in this race that lived under the ground, as do most civilizations around the world, ancient civilizations around the world. And there was actually a book called Vril, The Power of the Coming Race, that was a novel written in 1871 by Edward Buller Lytton. And that he was an occult. He was a guy that was steeped in the occult. I think he was a Rosicrucian. And I mentioned before that the Vril Society made contact with entities that gave them schematics. They gave them schematics, working schematics for craft. Now, and of course, ultimately all that technology ended up where it is still today, under the ice in Antarctica, in the underground bases in Antarctica. But here's the deal. This race, remember what the Nazis were trying to do. One of the primary things that the Nazis were trying to do, create super soldiers. That was Hitler's end all, was to create this master race, the Aryan race, which everybody is familiar with. But what most people don't understand is that when Hitler wanted to create the master race, he wasn't looking ahead, he was looking behind. In other words, he was trying to bring out the genetics, to refine the genetics that he believed were already in his people from the Atlanteans, from the great Aryan civilizations. So basically these entities that they got in contact through the occult, which we talked about in a prior show, it enabled them to do what they wanted to do. They made huge leaps and bounds in genetic technology, another thing a lot of people don't know about the Nazis. Now, these experiments that like Joseph Mengele was doing and the different Nazi scientists, understand that a lot of those scientists were brought over to the United States in Project Paperclip and began to continue their work in their respective fields. The geneticists continued to do their genetic experimentation. So all of this technology that was fueled by the cult and by these entities that Darren's referring to, which they are demonic entities, they're very nefarious, evil entities, fallen entities that were giving this schematics and the technology and driving the impetus behind all this, came over to the United States. So I just wanted to make that connection that the same forces that were at work in World War II with the Nazis are still at work in the world. They're just below ground. They're functioning behind the scenes.
And you know, it's the legend that the seances or whatever were pulling up these schematics from just concentration or from, I don't know how telepathic means, but what if, personally, I'm just postulating that could be a cover story in which, if this other line of thinking is true, that the Vril Society was in contact with the actual race of the Vril who knew, and you said the word Atlantean. I wanted to say it before, but I said so many crazy things I didn't want to throw the word Atlantean in it, but that's supposedly the technology they knew of. They didn't want to possess it. They're supposedly the Vril don't take that much part in it, but they knew where to get it. So they gave that the Atlantean technology to Hitler, and as you were saying, he believed they were from the master race, or maybe perhaps once they got in contact with some of these entities, they told them that they were, and they could help them perfect their genetics. And so, as Tim was saying, when they came over to the United States and you start drilling all these deep underground military bases, and those same German scientists are over here and they're in those bases doing research, you say, well, excuse me, we're going to have a meeting now, and I'm going to introduce you to some entities, and here they are. And so when they walk in the room, in fact, Phil Schneider talks, and Tim, you could probably tell the story, Phil Schneider talks about being in a meeting in which non-human entities entered, and a whole host of underground engineers left and literally quit and tried to walk off the job when non-human entities entered the room. Well, I believe in an underground base that belonged to the UN. He said it was a model of what's built in New York, but under the ground. And if I want to, I want to tie some of the other things that we talked about together. You guys were talking before about how they make it unbelievable, the people that don't want the truth out. Well, you just said, well, if there's one real picture on the internet, why don't you flood the internet with 50 fake ones that no one believes? It's all ridiculous. You mentioned it at the water cooler at work, you're going to get laughed at. Well, how about these Vril, the type 3s, the females, are in a movie? They're actually portrayed quite kindly in a movie, and it makes it very much unbelievable. So I'm not sure if I should mention the movie here, but
yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's a Star Wars movie, and if you Google Kaminoans or whatever, it was the tall, gray-like entities with the wide-set eyes that were in charge of the cloning centers, producing the clone armies. That is supposedly what a female Vril Type 3 looks like exactly. Not a little bit. The person that has seen these entities, I'm not going to give this person's name right now, but this person has had a lot of interaction with these entities that I've been tracking, says that the Kaminoans, if you just look up Star Wars clones, Kaminoans, that is supposedly exactly what a female Vril Type 3 looks like. The females are much more kindly looking than the scary males. But anyway, to stay on task with their point, if you put that in a movie, now, if that ever comes out and someone ever claims it to be true before the elite want it to be known, you're going to be laughed, out of the room. Of course, something from Star Wars can't possibly be real, but supposedly that's exactly what they look like. And so whoever made that movie, and I think we know some of the people who did make that movie, know all about them. So I just want to say, so go ahead. I was just going to try to bring it back to super soldiers, so we didn't.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Well, we have Captain America, and we have all these superheroes, and these are genetically modified beings in most of the cases. These are genetically modified beings, and people, if you present this information to people in the form of Captain America, how do they react? Well, that's science fiction. That's ridiculous. Yeah. They don't have a context for this technology in reality, and it's purposely so. They want you to think about genetics and super soldiers and nanotechnology and robotics. They want all of these ideas in your brain to be associated with movies. Because movies aren't real, because movies are fictional, it's Hollywood. That's how they want you to look at this. So that's part of the programming. When in reality,
take the Avengers. You bring up a really good point. I didn't want to stop. You're on a tear there. But if you take, Iron Man is a cybernetically enhanced being. Thor says he's a god. Okay. And he often says things that are we could get into Thor all on its own. That's a whole conversation. But then you've got the Hulk that's genetically modified, and then you've got Captain America, the super soldier. So how about that? And they battle really, really evil things that we hate and save us all.
Aliens in many cases.
I like the Avengers. Well, of course, but I like the Avengers, of course. That was a great movie. I mean, whoever did it, top of their game. I love Iron Man and all that stuff. But, boy, is it coincidental that it's everything that they want to push, and they are softening our hearts to all of those subjects.
Notice that's British as well, the Avengers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I do think that there's a reason for that, but that's beyond the scope of this conversation. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and people, of course, I can just imagine the perhaps thousands of people rolling their eyes, but let me tell you something. DARPA has actually proposed on paper creating super soldiers with the very capabilities, in some cases, especially Captain America, that you see in the movies. I mean, this isn't something that, we're pulling out of our rear ends. This is the Defense Department. These are Pentagon-initiated projects. They want to have cybernetic soldiers. They talk about it in the daylight. Again, if they're talking about it in the daylight, then they've already done it beneath the ground. So they want to have technology integrated into the human body so that they can, imagine if they can produce human beings that have night vision capabilities because they have some kind of apparatus that's been installed into their eye socket. That would be a capability that would allow soldiers to be able to access night vision, for example, without having to have an external piece of equipment. That's something that DARPA would love to be able to do, or to be able to interface.
I think they can already do it.
I think they can too, or to be able to interface directly into the brains of their soldiers, or by the way, telepathic communication between soldiers. That is a DARPA project. That's not Tim and Darren, blowing smoke. That's a DARPA project. They want soldiers to be able to communicate quietly, telepathically. It's going to start off as a helmet, and your brain interfaces with it, and obviously people can imagine where this is going. They're going to put chips in your brain. They're going to chip your cerebral cortex. Ray Kurzweil goes all around the nation talking about this stuff openly. He works for Google. He's one of the execs at Google now. This isn't stuff that they're kind of wondering if they're going to do. This is stuff that they've already done in many circumstances and projects that are already on the table. You want to run faster. You want to be strong. You'll be able to carry hundreds of pounds of weight. And we're not just talking about exoskeletons. We're talking about genetics. That's where this is really going, is in genetics, but also the cybernetics, the cyborgs. And there again, the term cyborg. Almost everybody listening to this conversation is going to, who are familiar with Star Trek, is going to picture the Borg, the Borg from Star Trek. But you know what? Let me tell you something. That's very accurate imagery to what DARPA wants. They want soldiers that are interfacing with their system that they can control. We know that the government has already done MK Ultra. The CIA has already done MK Ultra, already done the Monarch Project. They're working with mind control all the time. Well, why do you work with mind control? Because you want to control minds. that in and of itself should make people worry. The government is very interested in controlling the minds of their soldiers. They don't want soldiers on the battlefield to be inhibited by, they don't want them to have moral impediments. They want killing machines.
And Tim, we should mention, Steve Quayle's book, Xenogenesis, one more time, and say that if anybody is listening to this program right now and does not have that book, go to stevequayle.com and get Xenogenesis, Making Men into Monsters, because Tim and I were talking earlier today, and you ranted that that book contains everything about this. This is everything you need to know is in that book.
Really
you got to get that book. I was just thinking too that as what I believe was happening too with the underground bases and introducing them to these other entities that had access to technologies that we didn't. So there's a host of projects going on, from anti-gravity to cloaking to all of the military technology. But there was also what you and I, Tim, have talked about, cloning, which we won't get into it too much, but I have reason to believe that cloning technology is scarily advanced beyond our wildest imagination. And I believe that just as in the Garden of Eden, when this entity appeared to Eve and said with the lie, you surely will not die, I do also think that underground, or whatever these meetings produced when the scientists that were in the know introduced American scientists, and perhaps it was going around the world all simultaneously, that these entities offered modern man the same type of lie, and we took it all over again. That
absolutely
through cloning, through genetic engineering, you will surely not die. Your eyes will be open and you'll become like gods. And I think that a lot of the elite became addicted to this idea that through genetic engineering, through cloning technology, they could jump body to body, consciousness transfers, and some other very hard to imagine the technologies that they would cheat death. I think that they think they're on the cusp of doing it. They're not quite there, but they're in the mad race to do so. And I think it's going to cost mankind just as much as it cost the first time we fell for the lie.
Yeah, that is the primary. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Tim, if I could just interject something here. You had mentioned cloning before, and before I forget, on the May 2nd, 2014 broadcast of this show, we had our intelligence insider telling a great story about cloning and about the cloning of a dog. Folks, go back and listen to the May 2nd, 2014 episode of the Hagman and Hagman Report, and this will all begin to make sense. And also, prior to that as well, or in conjunction with that, Paul McGuire talks about Hyperborea, the Nazis' race, if you will, Hitler, and all this. So this is all fitting together. Folks, if you followed this program for any length of time, Mr. Alberino and now Darren are adding very critical pieces to this puzzle. That's all I really want to say. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, before Tim jumps in, I'm just still happening to be staring at on my computer in front of me that the Star Wars Kaminoans, that supposedly is this female Vril that is one of probably many entities but as Phil Schneider saw, I believe it's the Tall Grays, that this is the race that they put in the movie that's in charge of the cloning factory. I mean, I guess if there's no more way to make it ridiculous and obvious and tell us exactly what they're doing, if this is one of the entities that pointed to this technology, and then they put in the movie that is the thing in charge of the cloning, I don't know what to say. No, I probably couldn't tell it to anybody on the street and with them keeping a straight face. It's a perfect cover for keeping it in the ridiculous and out of like what Tim said, the average American couldn't grasp.
Tim sorry about jumping in here, but is that like you're standing in the line of the grocery store and you see the National Enquirer, or back in the day the Tattler, I think it was, or one of these tabloids, and of course you've got this alien shaking hands with whoever the president was at the time, Nixon or Elvis or something. Who knows? I mean, is this a kind of programming or the mental saturation. Go ahead.
Those are all fake. Those images.
Right.
But they're trying to make light of or intentionally cover up by making it ridiculous of a very serious situation. Let me direct this conversation towards something I think it will help people understand how this could be so, because I know this is a very difficult pill for a lot of people to swallow. It was for me, and any sane person is going to have a hard time digesting this stuff because it is so absolutely bizarre. But there's a ufologist, a very well researched, he does great work, ufologist named Richard Dolan, and Richard Dolan has done extensive investigation into all of this. By the way, there's an interview online. I maybe Darren, if you have access to YouTube right now, there's an interview online. I don't know the title of it, where he actually interviews somebody that worked with Project Blue Book. I can't remember his name, but he was sworn to silence for 50 years. But after the time of his silence expired, he spoke out. One of the reasons is because he was about to die. He had some kind of a disease, I can't remember what it was, but he was on his deathbed, and it just so happened that his period of silence was his agreement was expiring, and so before he died, he came out and spilled the beans, and spilled the beans on a lot of stuff, Area 51 stuff, and so this isn't just kook stuff. This is well documented, high-level people coming and talking about this stuff. And anyway, referring to Richard Dolan, Richard has a term that he coined. He calls it breakaway civilization. I referred to that earlier. It's very important to understand breakaway civilization, because if you can understand breakaway civilization, it gives you the context to place everything that we're talking about tonight. A breakaway civilization basically refers to a society or a group of people within a society that have access to high technology that is more advanced than what the general public is using. What happens is, if there is a policy of silence to cap that technology so that the public doesn't know about it, where you just trickle down little bits and pieces so that we're not stuck in the Stone Age forever, so that society can, it's kind of like handing out little pieces of candy so that society can be happy with their iPhones and with their high-tech gadgets and their movies and their Facebook and their, so to keep everybody happy, but in the background you're advancing hundreds of years with technologies that in reality could absolutely transform society and be very beneficial to society. But that is what is happening behind the scenes. Different factions, it's not one solid faction. It's different factions are working with technologies that are vastly beyond what we're using in the public world. Technologies that again are akin to Star Wars and to Star Trek. And so if you have maniacal individuals in the background, unsavory individuals working with high technology, individuals who would love to reduce the population of the Earth to 500 million people, and would love for their genetically engineered Ebola virus to be killing 10 times the amount of people it's killing right now. When you have people like that who are in control of this technology, listen, they're living in a different world than you. They're living in a completely different reality than you are. They're working with technology. They're working with cloning technology, life extension technology, weapons, aeronautical vehicles. They're working with bases that are located off planet. They have craft that's like aircraft carriers that orbits around the Earth, and they've got all kind of vehicles that they fly in and out. This is a breakaway society, using Richard Nolan's term. This is a society that is now developing apart from the human race. It's like if we, from the 21st century, were to go back in time with all of our technology and begin to live on an island at the same time that, the people from the BC era are walking around, in animal skins and sandals. It's two societies that are both human societies that are living on the same planet, but one of the societies is working with technology that's vastly superior to the other. In fact, the other society, even though they're both human living on the same planet, can't even comprehend at this point the technology that's being used, that's being deployed, and in many cases deployed against them. They can't even comprehend it. People cannot even comprehend that the government openly at this point in time has the technology to project audible voices into your bedroom. And folks, this is well known. I can't give you the document right now. Google it and do the research yourself. It's well known. They can project audible voices into your bedroom, and it's guys that are working with the equipment. They can pretend they're God. I mean, imagine this is godlike power that these people have. And the problem is that these are not benevolent human beings that are in charge of this technology. In most cases, these are people, and I always harp on this because it's the root of evil and not just the fruit of evil, like Steve always talks about. These are people who are steeped in the occult. These are people who have sworn oaths to Satan and to the coming one, referring to the Antichrist. These are the people who are orchestrating the New World Order and who are behind the Illuminati. They have a breakaway civilization. They have a breakaway civilization that is fully operational. That's what the kind of stuff that Darren's referring to. They've got cloning technology. They've got life extension technology. They've got technology that allows them to traverse the earth in a blink of an eye. And as fantastic as that may seem, just think about it logically. If it's true that these people had access to technology, let's say that was 10 years in advance to what we had. After World War II, they did. It was called the Nazis. They did have that technology, documented fact. They were at least 10 years ahead of everybody else with the technology. And that's very conservative. They were way more. They didn't have it all fully developed by the time the war came to a conclusion. That's why they went to Antarctica. So just take the Nazis. If they were, let's say, 10 years advanced, we bring those guys over here. We don't tell anybody about the technology they were working on, and we begin to develop it with taxpayer money and then ultimately black budget money. Isn't it logical to infer that there would be in the background, just like Richard Dolan postulates, a breakaway society that is working with advanced technology that obviously we don't have in the public realm, in the public forum?
And Tim, add on to that, got in contact with entities that we can hardly imagine. So that was the knowledge of the scientists, and then you add on to it a whole host of entities that wanted to begin the process of the Great Deception. And you fast forward till there was studies, and I was researching showing that part of the Montauk experiments were sending out telepathic messages over the whole northeast of the country, and they actually had over just a phone number. They were broadcasting a phone number in the 1960s, and over 600 people called that number.
Yep.
So you're talking about just sending out a telepathic, and having 600 people say, "I'm calling this number that's in my head." The 60s, we're now at 2014, so you can only imagine exactly where the technology has gone from there. And Tim, I wanted to also say that I pulled up on the computer, if you Google deathbed confession of former CIA agent, you're going to see a very credible short interview with a person who isn't in great health, but obviously is telling the truth about his experience in Project Blue Book and how him and his boss, under orders of President Eisenhower, went and needed to go into some of these secret bases and get the truth right now, where Eisenhower was going to take the base by force if they didn't tell him what was going on. And the guy didn't get to, but his boss got to talk to an quote-unquote alien. Well, if you see, some of these entities that we're talking about, let's put it all together with what Steve Quayle and Tom Horn and some of the other people that come on this program are very good at describing, is that the L.A. Marzulli, the coming Great Deception. So these people are ushered into a room with an entity like this. Of course you're going to think it's an alien, and that's exactly what they want them to believe. And they're known to be great liars. You could even tell they were liars. And so you can't believe what they say, but they're coming from intergalactic, they're from this star system or that. And really, all along, it is nothing like that. The technology that are getting is local, ancient, high-tech, Atlantean high technology, and it's beginning the Great Deception to make everyone believe that the star saviors are coming and that there's all this intergalactic activity, when and Hynek and even Tesla, their intellects, the more they dug into it, the more they came to the conclusion that it was not intergalactic, it's local. And that's what people, the more you dig, the more you realize this is not intergalactic. This is from here, and it's made to look intergalactic for a reason. Did I lose everybody?
No.
No, that's a good point, because the origin of this is what people refer to as angel tech. Obviously, this goes back to fallen angels. This gets traced back to ultimately to Lucifer, and that's not just the opinion of Christians. Understand that that's the opinion of Luciferians. That's the opinion of people who are operating in the highest levels of government and in media. These people, they not only believe in the occult, they not only believe in angels and demons, they believe in Jesus. They understand that they're working against the gospel, by the way. They understand that because they believe that Lucifer is going to give them a part in the coming kingdom, the kingdom that they're very convinced that he's about to inaugurate on the earth. And they're under the delusion that he will share power with them. But woe to those who get in bed with the father of lies, because they're going to get backstabbed. But the issue is that behind all of this, if you want to really wrap your head around this, you have to go back to the roots. You have to go back to Genesis, to the fall, all the way back to the garden, and understand that when the devil offered Eve that she could be as the gods or as gods, what was it that he was referring to? Knowledge. And this wasn't just esoteric, new agey, worthless knowledge. This was functional knowledge. If he told the truth in anything in that scenario, referring to the devil, the knowledge that he was going to offer her and that he was offering to her was real. It was real knowledge. It wasn't a ruse in the sense that nothing happened. And no, this is the fruit of what happened back in those roots in the Garden of Eden. What we see now, that knowledge, that forbidden knowledge, is playing out. It's coming to a close. It's going full circle back to the very first chapter of the book of Genesis. And this is the kind of knowledge that basically the human race has been paying the price for throughout all of history. I mean, we invent weapons of war, we improve weapons of war, and what do we get as a result? We get more dead human beings. I mean, this is the ebb and flow of human culture. It's the apple. By the way, I don't think it was an apple, but it's what was offered to Eve. It's Luciferianism, and it is at the heart of every single issue. It's at
Tim,
the heart of the occult.
Tim, maybe the next, I know we're coming up to close of the hour here, but we can get into something about how the super soldiers, all this high tech is leading to the Great Deception, because I believe the Great Deception is already here and taken a hold in the elite. There's a vast, and you said it was the breakaway society. They've embraced the Great Deception already. They are fully taken a hold of it. Probably couldn't escape if they want to, unless it probably cost them their lives. But so they're just waiting to expose the Great Deception on the masses, and that's why they're not in a rush, because they know how much is in the balance. It's all the human souls. It is the great chess match that's going on, and they have to unfold it in just the right way, lest the feisty human spirit be roused before it's time, and we fight back in ways they are not comfortable with. So it's well documented on the show. They are luring us to sleep and slowly taking away our claws and our teeth to the point when they spring the Great Deception. It's going to be embraced by the masses, and it's just not time yet, but it's coming. And the elite have already taken a hold of the Great Deception. They've already fallen for it, and they're just waiting to spring it on the rest of us.
Yeah, and they're going to spring it during a time of great cataclysm. And there is a cataclysm coming. There's both a geological and a financially engineered cataclysm coming. And it will be unlike anything the earth has ever seen. The Bible actually talks about the earth wobbling to and fro like a drunkard. Now that prophetic snippet from the Psalms is actually I don't think it's the Psalms, it's one of the prophets, actually is corroborated for whatever it's worth in the occult world and in the prophet, the Delphic oracle and these different occultic prophets and prophetesses that were divining from demons, but they were also seeing in the future some great cataclysm that was coming to the earth that would literally cause the earth to something to change in the geological structure of the earth. So there's something coming that they know is coming. They're preparing the deception, and when it happens, that's the point at which they're going to unleash the deception on the masses. When we're calling out, as the Bible says in the book of Revelations, for peace and safety because of the chaos.
Absolutely. That's a great place to take a break. We're at the top of the hour. We'll be right back with Timothy Alberino and his friend and researcher Darren after these short messages. You're listening to the Hagman and Hagman Report on this Monday, September 9th, 2014. Stay with us for our final hour after these few short messages.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagman here for American Survival Wholesale, AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. But after listening to tonight's program, it's almost, you wonder, wow, are we going to need preps, and what kind of preps? We're going to need more than preps. We're going to need ray guns. But no, seriously. Look, we know that bad things are coming down the road here. We can see that there are bad things that are on the horizon. That dust cloud is the dust cloud of not just a storm, but an army. And we need to prepare. If we want to be responsible Christians, if we want to be responsible men for our families, or women, or adults, how's that? We will prepare. We will make the necessary preparations. Go to our friends, our partners in this radio endeavor, our sponsors, our what's a Christian-owned, veteran-owned company, American Survival Wholesale at AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. If you scroll down to the bottom of our page at HagmanandHagman.com, we've got a link directly to their home page. Folks, you could tell. And I've spoken with the owners here of late. They are getting the orders out. There was a slight delay because of a mechanical issue. However, the orders are going out, and I'll tell you something. Some of the sales that they have are incredible. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Make your list of what you need. Focus primarily, folks, on proteins, whether it be chicken, beef, whatever. Order those as soon as possible. The reason being is that the prices, raw food prices, are on the rise. We've seen this at the grocery store. It's going to affect the long-term storable food. So go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. That's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Do it as soon as possible. Make your list and tell them Doug and Joe Hagman sent you.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies, and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour on this Monday edition of the Hagman and Hagman Report. Our guests are Timothy Alberino. His book is The Alberino Analysis, found off stevequayle.com. And Darren, is it okay if we use your last name?
Yeah. Geisinger, yeah.
And do you have a website?
Can you hear me okay? No, yeah, I don't have a website right now. Support stevequayle.com and click the Alberino Analysis there. That's I'm just supporting them too right now.
Fantastic. Well, both of you make a wonderful research co-op, if you will. Tim, I'm blown away by the information that you're providing. Darren, you as well. Both of you. That's the Alberino Analysis. The link to the YouTube channel is off of Steve Quayle's website, stevequayle.com. Tim, we're going to turn it over to you directly. You go ahead and take us where we need to go. We've got about 50 minutes left of the program, so let's rock and roll here.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about what Darren referred to, the deception that's coming, because you can imagine, I think people may be the ones that aren't, the ones who don't think that we're absolutely out of our minds at this point, can begin to understand how deceptive how potentially deceptive the deception is actually going to be. I mean, imagine if you don't even know about the stuff that's going on beneath your feet, if you don't even know about the stuff that's going on above your head that human beings are involved in. Imagine the level of deception that's coming to the planet. I mean, they've got, at this point in time, they've got projects that they've been working on, for example, at Los Alamos, the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory. They've been working on research, holographic research, and parapsychology research, and the whole idea is to be able to control the human mind and to project to project what they want, to project the perspective that they want into the minds of the American people and of the human race. And they do have the technology to do that. They have holographic technology at this point that, the only thing that we can really reference is, for example, Star Trek. I mean, everybody remembers the holodeck in Star Trek. They've got technology equivalent to that at this point. Maybe not to that exact level, but it's to the point where it can fool you if you were talking to a hologram. Let's just put it that way. And just begin to put the pieces together from everything we're talking about, the genetics, the super soldiers, the breakaway civilization, what they could be crafting behind the scenes to deceive everybody. I mean, they could virtually do anything they wanted at this point. They could make the masses believe anything that they wanted at this point. It starts to give you an idea of why they're so concerned with dumbing all of us down. It's all part of the same agenda, though many different factions are involved at the echelon of this thing. At the very top level of this ladder is Satan, the father of lies. That's what the game's all about, is deception. And I've made that comment many times because it is what it's all about, is deception. It is deception. That's what their agenda is. That's what's unfolding. And also, it's important for people to understand, too, that, yes, I've done investigation into this stuff, but, again, I told the story, and I won't tell it again here, but I forget what show it was with you guys, Doug and Joe, that I told the story of when I actually was a first-hand eyewitness of some of the technology that I talked about tonight, that I referenced tonight. I actually have seen this technology, and I'm not talking about some bleep in the sky or some bright light that I saw that was 10 miles away or something like that, or hearsay or something that could have been something. I'm talking about 50 feet above my head, descending over the car I was sitting in, looking up at it with a witness sitting in the passenger seat of the car. Both of our jaws just dropped to the floor, watching this vehicle that made no sound whatsoever, had no visible propulsion system, no propellers, like I said, absolutely silent. Folks, what we're dealing with here is a breakaway civilization. That's what we're dealing with. This is technology that is vastly superior to what you see flying around in the skies of Afghanistan or in Iraq when you watch the news. This is vastly, vastly superior stuff. And again, we have to highlight the word deception at the end of the broadcast here, because they're going to take all of this stuff that most people have no clue about and aren't even willing to accept that it could possibly exist, and they're going to turn it on us in the form of a deception. They're already doing it.
And Tim, I would say that, as fantastical, and it is hard to imagine about all the high technology that you yourself witnessed, and talking about, the triangular-shaped craft that can cloak and go interplanetary, and that I think it's 83 or 89% anti-gravitic. That was probably old technology. They probably have full anti-gravity now. We must understand, though, that is still being controlled by the evil one. They are the pawns and still being controlled by technology that's way above that. Because if you go back to the visions of Fatima or Fatima, I've heard it pronounced two different ways. Tom Horn definitely, in his great book Exo Vaticana, talks about Fatima, and the visions there were of a silver disc that looked like the sun that came down out of the sky and spun and gave off rainbow light. And was witnessed by thousands of people, and what was happening there was long before the U.S. and the people that we're talking about got their hands on this high technology. So who were they? What was going on then? And let's carry this thought through. If that was happening and they were testing that on us, what was the reaction of people? Well, it was a highly spiritual reaction. People were crying out it was the end of the world. They were repenting to God. A lot of people got closer to God through that experience. And I think what the entities, the deception was rolling then, and what they needed to do was change our perception and reaction to not turning towards God when we see something like that, but believing that there's a higher intelligence which must be obeyed. So if you were to take that same type of a mass sighting right now, and people were to see a large silver disc coming in and out of the sky and down along a group of people, I think that the reaction would not be repentance. It would not be turning towards God. I would be, and I've heard people say this myself firsthand, I always knew we came from aliens. I literally, that's a quote I heard on a fishing trip not that long ago from a grown man that is just watched too much History Channel. I always knew we came from aliens, and I think that was part of the Great Deception, that they have been carefully fostering a reaction through all of the sightings, through the Roswell and other crashes, to craft man's reaction to think of, there's a superior intergalactic force that's been watching us all along, and boy, they must be really, really a lot more advanced than we are, which it's, as I think we can get into this hour, it's not I don't believe that it is all intergalactic and an ancient alien race that seeded us here. I believe it is the Great Deception, and they are exactly instituting this lie among men that, and Ridley Scott's Prometheus movie was exactly that we were seeded here by ancient aliens, that our DNA came from them, and I think that I'm a huge Alien fan of the series Alien, and somewhat I always appreciated Ridley Scott's as artistic work, and he's a great director in worldly terms. And so I was tracking Prometheus coming very closely, and I was waiting because I knew the plot lines that they were going to use that were way before Prometheus came out, and what plot lines they were going to use. And I specifically remember reading an interview where Ridley Scott said, yes, I was going to do that. I was going to make a prequel to Alien, and I was going to do this, and this storyline, which was much more conventional. And someone came along, he said, that had such an extraordinary, and you guys can look this up, you can Google this for yourself. Someone came along that had such an extraordinary idea, I couldn't resist it. He was going to make a prequel to Alien that was going to be a much more conventional sci-fi movie, and someone came along and swayed him to make the engineers or whatever human-looking, and that their DNA seeded our planet. It's the panspermia lie. And right now, if I am not rambling on too much, they are coming up to a crescendo to really have most reaction across the board that we must have come from a higher intelligence source. And it's whoever comes on the scene, and they're going to wait for just the right time. And as Tim said, in a great catastrophe where we are on our knees already begging for relief, and that's when they'll come on and they'll make sense in a whole host of ways. And I think they're going to do away with some evil baddies, just like in Avengers, how the godlike people save humanity from very ugly, very nasty enemies. I think they'll do that in front of everyone. They could possibly be stopping disease. They could be helping us with nuclear reactors that are leaking everywhere, or nuclear bombs that have gone off. They could stop certain diseases or pandemics and defeat these baddies right in front of everybody's eyes and turn the lights back on and start food flowing again. And how do you think the Great Deception is going to be so great? Who is not going to believe that? You're going to see your salvation right before your eyes, and they're going to have the explanation that we come from them, and our genetics. I'll turn it right back over to Tim in a second. Our genetics are actually corrupted. They originally, when they made us, it was going to be much better than this, but over all this time it's been corrupted, and now they need to tweak it back for us. They can make it right, and it's a mix of this and a mix of that. And if you just take this genetic upgrade or this mark, then you're going to be in with everybody and be part of humanity 2.0, which we were meant to be all along, which was godlike, which is the lie that the entity told Eve in the garden. So, yeah, here's the apple all over again. But it's taking in our human terms a long time since World War II and the Nazis to get from there to 2014, and who knows when this is going to start to really break wide open. To us, it's taking seemingly forever, but to these entities that are in control of Fatima and Roswell and whoever else is carefully pulling the strings, they're outside of time. They're timeless. They're not in a rush. They want all of the human souls. They know exactly the plan that they want to unfold, and it has to be to exactness, and they're not going to do it a moment too soon. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, it's important to for people to realize that at the end of all this, in the book of Revelations, in the midst of everything that's happening, the people are going to be clamoring for peace and safety. In fact, that's what they're going to be saying, peace and safety. They'll probably be clamoring for it in the beginning, and then when these entities, these saviors come and bring stability back to the planet and right all the wrongs that are going on, that's going to be their banner, peace and safety. It's what it's going to be allegedly all about, is peace and safety. It's not going to be just some horrific scene. It is going to be a horrific scene, but when the ultimate deception unfolds, you have to think of it unfolding not as an ugly demonic thing, but as Lucifer, the angel of light, the very appealing, the very wise light bringer, the enlightener of humanity, because that's what Luciferianism is. They believe that the God of the Jews, the God of the Christians, Adonai, is the tyrant, and that Lucifer, they view Lucifer as Prometheus. They view Lucifer as Prometheus, as the bringer of technology, the bringer of enlightenment. That is precisely the way that he is going to portray himself at the end. And this is something that occurred to me. There's something that occurred to me that I'll try and break down as quickly as possible here in the midst of my brain fog. But there's something that occurred to me when I was watching a documentary, and I sent this over to Joe. I know Joe saw the documentary Thrive. Now, if you haven't seen the documentary Thrive is it's more than a documentary; it's a movement, and you can find it on the internet on YouTube. It's just called the Thrive documentary, and their catchline to the documentary is, "What in the world will it take?" And basically, they're referring to reverse the what's happening on the earth, and they actually do a great explanation of the Illuminati, which I was surprised that they would actually tackle that, because this is a pretty mainstream documentary. They break down the Illuminati, the banking system, the Federal Reserve, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. They break it down in a really succinct way. And for people who are just getting into this stuff, it's actually very enlightening, the documentary. However, I found it interesting that they even exposed in the documentary this breakaway civilization. And it was a very new agey documentary, but they exposed the breakaway civilization, that there exists anti-gravity technology, there exists technology that can be implemented across the globe, installed into houses all across the globe, into huts in Africa and South America, and everybody can be enjoying the same benefits of technology and be at peace. And there's an interesting wrench thrown into the whole thing at the end of the documentary, which I actually, when it happened, it caught me off guard, and I had an epiphany, and I began to laugh uncontrollably, because I realized that where this is going. At least this is my opinion. This is an Alberino analysis conjecture that what we know as the Illuminati, the New World Order, these guys are becoming very visible at this point, partly because of the internet, partly because everything is coming to such a head that they can't keep everything secret. But it's becoming ingrained in popular culture. The idea of the Illuminati, the hand symbols, the Beyonce, the all this kind of stuff that they've been doing for years and years in pop culture, that everybody has an idea at this point. Even people who really don't do too much time investigating these issues for themselves have this sort of sketchy idea, this sort of nebulous idea that a group called the Illuminati is coalescing power, that the New World Order is coming into formation, and that they want to control us all, the prison planet ideology, reduce the population of the earth. A lot of people are awakening to that, and that's a fact. A lot of people are waking up to that's going on. For example, a lot of people are waking up to the fact that the Federal Reserve is not federal, that the banking system is a fraud, and that's actually occurring right now. There is a global awakening. In fact, I find it astounding that even in the jungle cities that I lived in Peru, the locals now, because of the internet, knew about the Illuminati. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. These guys knew about, and I'm not talking about the guys living out in the middle of the Amazon. I'm talking about the cities in the jungle. They knew about the Illuminati. they couldn't tell you who the vice president was or who a single congressperson was in the United States, but they knew about the Illuminati and the New World Order, and they could tell you. A lot of them could name the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and even the Federal Reserve, which I thought, this is astounding. This shows how far spread the knowledge of the New World Order, the Illuminati, is reaching at this point. And I believe something is going to happen, because at the end, going back to the documentary Thrive, and I'm trying to piece this together as logically as I can, but at the end of the movie Thrive, basically they expose all of this that's going on. There's hidden technology. They bring people on who have actually developed anti-gravitational technology that the agencies of the government came and confiscated their stuff, and it's all about humanity 2.0, like Darren alluded to, that they talk about UFOs. So why am I saying all this? Because at the end of the documentary, there is an occultic New Age movement that they're pushing to overthrow the system, the New World Order and the Illuminati system. And that seems like a contradiction, because isn't the Illuminati and the New World Order an occultic system in and of itself? The answer is yes. It is Luciferian. But then you have now another occultic movement that's growing up simultaneously, and understand that in this separate situation that's beginning to foment and grow, that's where you have the singularity. That's where you have Ray Kurzweil. That's where you have transhumanism. That's where you have Barbara Marx Hubbard and conscious evolution, this idea that we're going to evolve humanity to the next state of evolution. So now picture, if you will, two factions that are growing. There's many more than two, but picture, if you will, two separate factions that are growing. On one hand, you have the obviously evil, wicked, maniacal New World Order that everybody knows about, with the Rockefellers and with all these different characters that have Kissinger and all these different characters that have become notorious. Okay, that's one side, and then on the other side you have this idea of transhumanism and evolving and solving the genetic diseases and curing the genetic diseases and solving the famine on the earth. And there's this movement that's rising. They want to take this new technology with the singularity and all these cybernetics and nanotechnology and genetics and improve the human condition. That's exactly what their banner is, to consciously evolve and to improve the human condition. Really what it is its apotheosis. It's Luciferianism. So people listening may say, wait a minute, so it's Luciferianism on both sides, and those sides are contradicting one another and seem to be adversaries. Yes, that's exactly what's happening. Because remember, the Illuminati and the New World Order people have gotten in bed with the father of lies. And let me tell you what hit me, and it was an epiphany. And like I said, I was laughing my butt off when I came to this part in the documentary, and I realized that these guys who think that they're going to share in the kingdom of Lucifer are actually being used as pawns. These guys that we believe that have so much power and the Queen of England and all these different people, they're actually going to be backstabbed. But isn't that the nature of the kingdom of darkness? I mean, who do they think that they're dealing with? They're not dealing with a benevolent Lucifer. They're dealing with the most deceitful entity in existence that we know of. He's going to backstab them. I believe that the New World Order, the Illuminati, are a scapegoat. And this is my opinion. I'm not speaking for Darren or anybody else. I believe that the Illuminati is a scapegoat. They're supposed to be the bad guy. They don't think that. They really believe. They've bought into Luciferianism 100%. They really believe that they're going to rule and reign with Lucifer. They really believe that they're going to have eternal life. They really believe it. And they're working towards that. But they're going to be backstabbed, in my opinion. They're going to be the scapegoat. There's got to be a scapegoat. And because I see this other thing rising, Humanity 2.0, or some people call it Mankind 2.0. It is a consciously evolved, a conscious evolution of the human race into the next phase of humanity. Really, what it is, it's post-human. It's post-human. That's where this is going on the other side of this equation. So understand that these are two contradictory philosophies coming from the same source. That's deception.
Tim, if I can touch on this a little bit, from what I've researched, along with all of the Roswell and the small grays that I believe are manufactured entities that have nothing to do with the tall grays. I think they're completely different. But along with some of these ugly, nefarious, very scary entities, subterranean, underground things, along with that, since World War II, there's also been the careful weaving of another legend. And you guys can comment or whatever if you've heard of these, the Nordics, the taller, good-looking, humanoid-type aliens that made contact with people. And even in the original Disclosure Project before 9/11, the big one, there was things you can see on YouTube where people say that there's a lot of different races of quote-unquote alien entities that are human-looking. And supposedly when Eisenhower was making, and he was a really good man from what I can tell, but he was very confused and scared about what was going on with these entities, and he made the deals with I think it was the tall grays, to be honest, and that's what gave birth to all these deep underground base deals going on. Supposedly there was another race, a humanoid-looking race that made contact and said, do not have an agreement with this other race. We have been fighting them on our own planet, quote unquote, for a very long time. You don't want to do that. In fact, we will trade you technology. Come inside with us. But the one clause on that is you have to give up your nuclear program. And so this has been, anybody can find these legends on the internet. Supposedly that was the deal. Well, Eisenhower didn't know who these people were, and the administration was scared. They want to give up their greatest weapon, as they thought at the time. So they made a deal with the tall grays and with that direction. So then if you really research UFO sightings and other things, there's always been this, they've always been around nuclear tests. You'd see Phil Schneider even held up a photo of a flying saucer or a craft watching the Bikini Atoll Island explosion. And then you've got other people saying that when a nuclear missile was launched in midair, a craft came and probed the craft, shooting these little rays into it. Other ones were stopping missile bases or activating missile launch codes and other things like that. And a lot of these seance or other things have been trying to convey to human beings, essentially, that the nuclear program will mean your own destruction, and we've been trying to save you from it. We tried with Eisenhower. They didn't do the deal, and now look at what you guys have done. So people are given these visions of mass destruction of the planet, and that I believe that what Tim is saying, and to tie it all together, is that this legend of the Nordics, the good-looking, perhaps long-haired, human-looking aliens are being, this tale is being woven so that when they come on the scene, they could, and this is my postulation, just like Tim said, so I'm not even speaking for Tim here, that they could be the ones that backstab the Illuminati, the politicians, the royalty, and the Greys, and several other really nasty-looking entities that we can hardly imagine, and say, we tried, it's our protocol to leave you alone, but you were on the verge of self-destruction. You were already nuking each other. These nuclear power plants had gone off. This group over here unleashed a plague on this country, and we have the proof right here, and we're going to stop it with our technology. And this EMP took out this entire country's infrastructure. We're going to turn those lights back on. We really didn't want to interfere, but you forced our hand. And by the way, you come from us, and we've been watching you for a very long time, and we were not going to get involved, but we had to because you were going to go extinct. And so Steve Quayle has often said something on these shows that he believed that the Lord gave him a vision that the sins of the leaders would be revealed in our time. And I think that goes with this, that these entities that are being carefully readied and crafted are going to double-cross the Illuminati, quote-unquote. I hate that word. and royalty, politicians, the people that are made these deals with these subterranean entities, the cloning technology, some of this other, and it's going to be swept away to the amazement of the humans watching, and they will be worshipped as gods because they will have taken care of the great enemy on the planet. They will have all the evidence to show what these people were doing, how they were nuking, how they were making, perhaps even the underground bases. Look at what they were doing in these underground bases. Look at what they were planning. They were planning your destruction. That's why they went under here, and they were releasing these plagues and these nuclear, and they're going to stop all that. Can you imagine the loyalty of those on the surface to a race that would come and say, you come from us, we're going to save you from your cataclysm. So, I mean, that is really painting an accurate picture of something that we really don't know the details, but that would, it would go to what I believe Steve Quayle is very correct, that we're going to see the sins of our leaders very openly and in our time. It's going to say that men's hearts will fail them for what they see coming up onto the earth. Because there's going to be some creatures that I'm tracking that make those real things look like child's play. I mean, literally, people will die when they see some things, and the lights could be going off, and the pestilence and the snare of the fowler, as the Bible says, will all be in play. And if someone is to rescue everyone from all of that and turn the lights back on, people will worship the image of this beast.
And understand that there will be at some point in time there will be the bowls of wrath poured out on the earth. So we're not saying that's fake. That will happen as a result of the earth becoming as it was in the days of Noah. The Bible says that in the days of Noah, the judgment of God was executed with water. But that in the final days, the days which will be like the days of Noah, will be executed, the judgment will be executed with fire. And so we're not saying that the judgment is a farce. No, it's going to happen. But what's going to happen first, as the apostles said over and over, is the deception. The great falling away is coming first. It hasn't happened yet. And what can unite all the religions of the world? What can unite all these different faiths and ideologies? Well, it's not very difficult if the whole world is in cataclysm and then these beings show up and save us. Listen, by the way, these beings, the government has a name for these beings, these quote-unquote Nordics that Darren is referring to. They call them the benevolence. That's what they call them, the benevolence. And people who are working inside of our government, who are supposedly, they believe they're working for the good side of things against the Illuminati. They believe that they're in league with the benevolence. So whether you believe it or not, they do. And so the issue is that something is coming that most people don't even have on their radar. That's why all of this is relevant.
Hey, Tim, go ahead. Can I jump back here? And I was just going to say something about the Daniel prophecy that talked about the last kingdom on earth being
iron mixed with clay? Mix of
clay and iron. Yeah. Do you want to comment on that, or do you want me to comment on that?
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to derail you. Well, people probably on this program, if you don't know about the Daniel prophecy, Google that and see it's where Daniel interpreted a dream, and he goes through and he sees a statue and it's different metals from the top to the bottom. When he comes to the last, he sees that it's the feet are a mix of iron and clay, and he says that, quote unquote, paraphrasing, they will mix themselves with the seed of men. And
we lost Darren. Yeah, what he was saying was
I think we lost him.
They will not cleave together, as the prophecy in Daniel says, that the miry clay and the iron will not cleave together, will not mix together, and that's what is in the 10 toes of the statue in the dream that he was referring to. Go ahead, Tim.
Yep, and that's the final empire, by the way, which is destroyed by the great rock that was carved out of the mountain, by the great boulder, which is the millennial kingdom of Jesus Christ. And so we're coming to a head here where, see, there's two things happening, and I want to stress this again. There is catastrophe coming on an order greater than anybody can really articulate it. People might hear, these guys coming on the radio on this program and saying the economy is going to collapse like V and these other guys, and then they say, oh, they're exaggerating. No, let me tell you something. They're not exaggerating. They're under-exaggerating, if that's even a word.
Hey, Tim, I'm back. I don't know. I think I got kicked off or something. You guys can hear me now?
Yeah.
We can.
I'm sorry. I just cut out there for, I don't know. I didn't hear what you guys were saying for the last couple of minutes, but go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt. I just got kicked off for some reason.
No, I was just saying how these guys that are predicting catastrophe, financial catastrophe, they're not even able to convey what it's really going to look like, because it is going to be an absolute collapse of everything. And it is an engineered collapse, partly. There's an engineered part to it, and there's a geological part to it. And this situation is going to give rise to the call for peace and safety. And I don't believe that peace and safety is going to come from the guys who everybody already knows are the bad guys. I think they're the scapegoat. And when the peace and safety comes, it will come from a class of beings, and believe me, they're going to be fallen angels, or they're going to be beings that are taking their orders from fallen angels, that are going to show up on the scene and are going to usher humanity into the golden age, the new golden age. And the prophecies in the occult world refer to it as the golden age in which the golden race will arise. And what is the golden race? It is a race of human beings that, just like in the golden age of the early days, when the gods mingled with men, that the golden age will be resurrected and men will become like gods again. And that's genetic. That has genetic connotations to it. And so what we're saying is that this whole thing, where everything is going, in my opinion, is not Illuminati, New World Order in the way that we are thinking about it. It's going towards something it's moving towards something that I call the new human paradigm. It's the new human paradigm, in a word, apotheosis. That's where this is all going to. And what's happening right now is setting the stage for humanity to consciously evolve at the behest and at the leadership of these other entities that are coming. And it will be, listen, the genetic revolution is going to happen. Everybody needs to understand that the genetic revolution is inevitable. And that's why the super soldier situation, because whatever the Pentagon's doing in the open, engineering super soldiers, whatever, always is going to leak out to the public intentionally. Always. Not the stuff they're doing under the ground necessarily. The stuff they're doing above board is always going to leak out to the public. It's going to cross over into the public forum, and that's why the hack, the human artificial chromosome, the 47th chromosome, is so crucial, because through that platform, we can become, as the Luciferians will tell you, like gods. But what we will be doing is we will be sacrificing the genetic trademarks that make us human. Okay? Understand that we have genetic trademarks as the human race that make us human. Yeah.
Can you hear me, Tim?
Yeah.
Is it garbled at all? Because you guys are sounding a little bit garbled.
It's breaking. It's coming in and out.
Well, this is what I was just saying. It seems like everything's okay on my end, but that's what I was saying about the Daniel prophecy about the kingdom that was going to mix. I mean, they have to be something that can mix their seed with the seed of men, and that's what Jesus said is, as in the days of Noah, so will it be when the Son of Man returns, and that was nefarious angelic entities mixing themselves with the human race. I mean, the Daniel prophecy spells it out right there, and I'm sure that they'll have a number of ways. You can either, if you're existing already, you can upgrade genetically through the way Tim is talking about, or you can mix marry and have children with these things. That's why how convenient that they will be human looking. But doesn't that kind of answer exactly what he meant by, as in the days of Noah, so will it be when the Son of Man returns?
And all of these technologies are converging together. All of these technologies and the occult and the philosophies behind this, eugenics, conscious evolution, you can imagine it like three circles that are being squished together, and in the middle they're going to get the same result, or they're all pushing towards the same result, which is the new human paradigm, because there is a new human paradigm. We're already seeing it happen. It's already coming into play. How human is human? How human is human? That is not just a rhetorical question. That is a question that guys like Ray Kurzweil, that's a question like the people that the leading transhumanists are already grappling with, because the technology is in the public arena is almost to the point where we actually, let me say this. I was and this was pretty astounding to me, that the other day I was watching Fox News, and they had some guy on that I can't remember who he was, but he worked with some kind of a genetics lab, and he made the statement. He said, our lab right now can already change or determine, with 100% determine, the color of your baby's eyes, the color of his hair, his complexion, and some various different external features. They can already do that right now. And this is mainstream, but the guy said we're not doing it yet. And the commentator, the guy that was interviewing asked him, well, why aren't you? And his response was, because the debate isn't worth it yet. It's not worth debating it yet. That was his response. It's not worth fighting about it yet, because ultimately the technology is going to get to a place where we won't have any choice. This is how we cure cancer. This is how we do this. This is how we do that. It's going to be integrated inevitably of its own momentum into society. It's coming. It's the genetic revolution. And let that sink in. And I know I'm saying that a lot because we're dropping some bombs right now. The technology to change a baby in the womb, to control the outcome of the color of their eyes, of the color of their hair, of their complexion, is already here, mainstream. The guy said he could do it in his lab tomorrow. Let that sink in. We are right on the cusp of a major genetic revolution, and the question of the future is what does it mean to be a human being? By the way, one of these groups, I can't remember if it's the Benevolence or if it's the Greys or whatever, these other entities, allegedly have shown, back in the 50s and 60s, have shown President Eisenhower and other people, allegedly, a holographic projection of Jesus being crucified on the cross. And their explanation was, we manufactured this whole scenario. It happened, but Jesus was one of us, and we did it for A, B, and C. A holographic projection that they claim to be in possession of. Whether or not that's true, imagine the ramifications if that actually surfaced. And it's absolutely false, obviously false. It's a lie. But imagine the delusion that would just consume the human populace of the planet. The stuff that we're talking about began to happen in the near future. And whether or not aliens are involved or the Illuminati, push all that away and just focus on transhumanism and conscious evolution, humanity 2.0, even with all the other elements out of the picture, that is going to happen. It is absolutely going to happen.
It's wow. It's incredible. By the way, we just lost Darren, Tim. So as an FYI. So go ahead and continue. I mean, while we try to get Darren back, this is incredible information.
And we have 12 minutes left of the show, just to let you guys know.
All right.
Yeah, so you can imagine all of these things converging. All of these things converging together, all the cataclysm, all the financial collapse that we've been warned about, and it is going to happen. Much of it engineered, like I said, a lot of it geological. All of this stuff is converging, and it's converging at a rapid pace right now. Order out of chaos means a lot more than people think. I think that the Illuminati are bringing in the chaos. They think they're going to bring the order, but but I don't believe they are. I believe that they're just agents of chaos. The order is coming from somewhere else, and it is going to be far more potent, and it's going to be a delusion and a deception to the likes of which people can't even imagine right now. And again, it's going to incorporate all these other elements. People are going to say, for example, let me just ratchet this down to a very practical scenario. Very practical scenario. I want you to imagine an Ebola-like virus that is spreading across the earth, much in the way it is now, but times 100. And millions of people, let's just say hundreds of thousands of people are dying. But somebody comes up with a vaccine or a cure that involves splicing into the human genome genetic information from some animal that's impervious to the disease. Okay, let's say a raccoon for the sake of argument. So we have some similarities between the genome of the human being and the genome of the raccoon, which we do. And if we take these genes, these specific group of genes, and we replace them with these specific groups of genes in the human genome, we're not going to get people walking around with raccoon ears and black and white stripes, but that genetic material will render the virus ineffective against the human race, okay? As crazy as that sounds, I want you to understand that right now, even as we speak, Monsanto is looking into a vaccine for Ebola. It's funding experimentation to develop a vaccine against Ebola. What does Monsanto do? What do they do? Genetic engineering is what they do. And even more specifically, cross-species genetic engineering. That's exactly what we have in our corn crops. We have our crops now mixed with all kinds of different species of creatures. Monsanto is one of the entities involved in creating a vaccine. What I'm saying is not far-fetched. It is literally right around the corner. The question is, what will you do? What will you do if you have to choose between remaining fully human or dying fully human? I mean, remaining fully human and living fully human, or, becoming not fully human and living, or remaining fully human and dying. What will you choose? That's not far-fetched. That is a practical scenario that is right around the corner. I'm telling you, it's right around the corner. And like I said, the fact that Monsanto is involved in working on a cure or vaccination for Ebola should absolutely confirm that what I'm saying is true.
And
they're coming up with genetic cures.
And Tim, that makes it so much more important, the fully God, fully manhood of Jesus Christ, that he was fully man so that he could die for fully men. Right. So could you expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah, there are, even in the book Exo Vaticana by Tom Horn and Chris Putnam, they deal with this question, which is a crucial question. What are the factors involving redemption of clones? Are clones redeemable? Are genetic cross-species genetic humanity 2.0 people redeemable? How human does one have to be to qualify for salvation via the cross of Jesus Christ? I mean, these are questions that churches should be dealing with right now. In the face of the rise of transhumanism, churches across the world should be dealing with these issues, but they're not. They're dealing with peripheral issues and how to get richer and that worshiping God is actually for us. It's not really for God. It's like Joel Osteen's wife said the other day. They're going to be blindsided. Everybody is going to be blindsided by the genetic revolution. Very few people are preparing themselves for the implications of a genetic technology that we already have. Again, let me tell you the two things that we already have right now. This is not conspiratorial. This is documented fact. We have, number one, the ability to change the color of a baby's eyes, hair, complexion, and some other superficial details of their appearance. We have that for sure. Number two, we have artificial chromosomes. We have a chromosome, a human artificial chromosome that is capable of changing up to 1 million base pairs at a time inside of the genome. 1 million base pairs at a time, and it is a human artificial chromosome. So just take those two pieces of data and then add in the Monsanto situation. That should be enough to prove to anybody listening that is having a hard time accepting what I'm saying right now. That is the proof. This is happening. It's happening right now, whether you like it or not, whether you believe in it or not. If not you, your children are going to have to decide whether or not they're going to upgrade to Humanity 2.0. And if they don't, they're going to be, there's a new faction of human beings. There's a new division of race that's coming. I'm not very articulate right now, but there's a separation that's coming within the human race. There is those who are electing to upgrade and those who aren't. And how do you think that those who aren't are going to fare in society? I mean, imagine your child having to go to college and compete with other people's children who have cerebral cortex upgrades because they have chips in their cerebral cortex that allow them to store vast amounts of information. This is coming. How is your child going to compete in university against these kinds of upgraded human beings? The answer is they're not. They're not. There's a new, what's the term I'm looking for? A new societal break. There's a new lower class. Let's just put it that way. And those of us who will choose not to be a part of Humanity 2.0, we're it. We're going to be the dumb Neanderthals.
Tim, I think as we've talked about before, the likes of Barbara Marx Hubbard and the transhumanists have already made up their mind that there's a vast section of humanity that isn't fit for the upgrade anyway. That's why I think you and I agree that these problems that you're describing now are probably not going to face anyone until after the Great Meltdown. So they want to get rid of a large swath of humanity just through the Great Meltdown so that from the ashes the new Atlantis can arise, probably in this country. It could perhaps, we won't even be here. It'll be in another country. But these tough questions and issues that we're facing about the great upgrade to the mark of the beast or genetic enhancements are going to face those people that make it through some of the meltdown that's about to come upon us. Do you agree with that?
Yep. Absolutely, and let me in closing. I'm glad you mentioned that because I think I've read this on the air before, and I know other people have. But let me make this crystal clear, not through my words, but just what Darren alluded to, the words of Barbara Marx Hubbard, who is the leader of the Conscious Evolution movement. This is actually from the book Brotherhood of Darkness by Dr. Stanley Monteith. At the end of the book, it says some people believe. Let me say, hold on a second. Here we go. Barbara Marx Hubbard is one of the leaders of the New Age movement. In her book, The Book of Co-Creation, she discusses the hidden meaning of the revelation of St. John the Divine. Her manuscript was channeled by a spirit she called the Christ Light. She quoted from Revelation 6:8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed him, and with the power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword and with hunger and with death and with the beasts of the earth. This is Barbara Marx Hubbard channeling this entity. The Christ Light explained the true meaning of that passage. Out of the full spectrum of human personality, 1/4 is electing to transcend with all their heart, mind, and spirit. 1/4 is resistant to election. They are unattracted by life forever evolving. Their higher self is unable to penetrate the density of their mammalian senses. They cannot be reached. They are defective seeds. Now as we approach the quantum shift from creature human to co-creative human, the destructive 1/4 must be eliminated from the social body. Fortunately, you, dearly beloveds, are not responsible for this act. We are. We are in charge of God's selection process for planet Earth. He selects, we destroy. We are the riders of the pale horse, death. We come to bring death to those who are unable to know God. We do this for the sake of the world. The riders of the pale horse are about to pass among you. Grim reapers, they will separate the wheat from the chaff. This is the most painful period in the history of humanity. You do not have to participate in the destruction. You are to be responsible for the construction which shall begin as the tribulation